Hello, hello. Welcome to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jared Jones, research specialties, ancient systems of meditation, the cognitive science of meditation, Buddhist philosophy, and the philosophy of science. Been a Buddhist now for about 21 years, also training in Taoism for another six on top of that, and have a broad interest in world religions because of my academic background. Us academic types like to study all sorts of things, but I'm not just an academic, I'm also a practitioner. And Sit and See is all about the five meditation aspects that I teach. Broadly speaking, these are techniques that are meant to help people in the real world train in meditation as opposed to people living in retreat or doing intensive practice in retreat do meditation. These are two very different things. So let's see who's here. Jay is here. Welcome. Sweet and Sour. Jessa, welcome. And Jay has a question in the chat about meditation already. I love that. How much would doing 5 to 10 minutes of intense breathing, body scanning every 2 hours further my development? David Barnes, welcome, welcome. Good morning. It's evening here, but the lighting makes it look like it's almost midday, I think. Okay. Dave, welcome. So if you were doing practice throughout the day, and do remember, if you're doing intensive breath, do 5 minutes. Don't do 10 minutes. You can do two 5 minute sessions with a break in between, but don't extend it to 10 minutes. Keep it at 5 minutes because the intensity should be even when you've been doing this for a while. Even when I'm doing this practice, I do it full on high intensity for 5 minutes. So this isn't a practice that you make longer and longer. Um, what would the difference be if you did it every couple of hours? Well, from the psychological research, what what from what I have seen, and again, I'm not a scientist. I'm a philosopher and a religious studies person who's looked at the science. But from what I've seen, when you meditate, you have sort of a change in your state that is like this, right? Where here's you with your normal state of mind, and then it becomes somehow different in a number of ways, and then that effect slowly peters out over time. Now, over a number of years, your state changes like this, let's say, where based on the accumulated hours of meditative practice, especially intensive meditative practice, your baseline state becomes different than a normal person's. Again, roughly speaking, right? That being said, from day to day, mostly it looks like this, where here's your baseline state and it becomes a little bit different for a period of time, and then it goes back to how it was roughly speaking, right? With a tiny amount of change over a long period of time, which becomes a lot of change when you've been doing this for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever. Now, having said that, think about it like this. Let's say that you do your morning practice and then throughout. Sorry about that. Looks like I had a little outage there temporarily. So then at the end of the day, the mind goes, you have a little bit of more practice, the mind goes roughly back to normal by the next morning. And then over a long period of time, there's tiny changes happening that build up and become a change in your state, not just a change in sort of what they would call like a dose effect, right? That you it's like taking a Tylenol and now you have a period of time where there's less pain and then it goes away, right? That's how much of the effects of meditation work in the short term relative to your baseline state for that day. However, if sorry, it cut out again. Yeah, we're getting some lag. Sorry about that. So, just like taking Tylenol, sometimes hold on, let me turn off my telly so that there's less demand from my interweb. Okay. So just like taking Tylenol, you take some here, the effect goes like this. By the time it's starting to wear off, you take another one, and then you never go back down to your baseline state while you're awake, right? This is how dosing effect of a medicine works. And then sort of like medicines that build up in your system over time, if you're taking them from day to day, slowly over 10 years, 20 years, the baseline state changes, right? So it's a medication that has a dosing effect and a long-term cumulative effect. So like this, if you want the dosing effect of meditation, which is a relative to your normal state, probably a much better quality of mind. If you want that to last longer, then you have more sessions at a shorter interval of time. Am I back? Haha. Okay. So, um, hopefully I'm reconnected. We shall see. And I'm not sure. It says I'm reconnected, but the stream seems to be paused on the side of YouTube. You guys let me know. Ah, nice. Okay. Right. Excellent. So I'll just put this in the chat. So, in terms of the effect of meditation, if you're it's a bit like taking a medication in the short term that has a dose effect. To try to say this for the third time, if you have a medication that has a dosing effect, you get a spike like this of an effect, roughly speaking. And so, likewise with meditation, if you're getting a dose of it here, and then you go back down to baseline, and then you get a dose of it here, then not very much of the effect is going to carry over into the middle portion, relatively speaking. But if you do meditation throughout the day, a bit like taking a Tylenol every few hours when you have a lot of pain in somewhere in the body, then instead of being down here with so that your pain, when your pain's really bad, you take a Tylenol and the effect of the Tylenol goes like this, and then you take another one and it goes like this, and you take another one, so that you're never down here at your baseline level of discomfort relative to the pain, right? So, in brief, that's how meditation works. Also, um, in terms of its dose-like effect, in terms of its state-like effect, over time, over months and years, your baseline state improves like this. And if you're living in the real world, it's a bit like this. It's a bit like the stock market, so it kind of goes up and down, but generally it's going up as long as you don't quit. So there is benefit from day to day of doing more practice if you can, and spacing it out throughout the day, definitely. Right, right. Okay, so yes, if you're doing 5-minute body scan and then intensive breath, or sorry, 5-minute intensive breath and then a body scan, yeah, you could do 5 minutes or 10 minutes body scan. I would recommend, if you have the time, trying to get the body scan to at least 10 minutes, um, if you can. Certainly by the time you get to 20, 25 minutes, the body scan will have really beneficial effects. I don't know exactly where the sweet spot is, but somewhere in the ballpark of 30 minutes of practice, once you start incorporating body scanning, is a good target uh, to be able to get the most benefits from that practice in terms of the way that I'm teaching it on this flow chart of 5 skills. Shawshank, hello. Good to see you. Sorry about the lag. Who else is here? Luck 108, welcome. Longer practice in the AM is for AM PM. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like that for me too. One of my teachers basically said, Jay, what you can do is, you have your morning practice, which sometimes might be even more than what we were just discussing. It might be 4 hours. Your morning practice might be a huge block of practice. And then not much throughout the day besides little maintenance practices to maintain the benefit of what you did in the morning. This is a pretty common approach, especially if you're trying to get the most out of certain kinds of practices that just take a long time to do. Um, there really is benefit, actually. Once you have enough capability, there's benefit to doing longer sessions. In the beginning, there's not much benefit because your body hurts. You can injure yourself. The you would be much better served building up a habit, doing a small amount you can actually do, and having it be really high quality. But at some point, you need to just do more, or you won't advance beyond, a medium, for lack of a better term, kind of like a medium level of capability, right? I know I'm being very imprecise, but you need to just spend some periods of time doing sessions that are longer, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, to get benefits that come from settling your mind down really radically. So yeah, uh, that is something probably that won't come simply by that's probably something that won't come simply by doing short sessions, but you can't skip to that. There's a lot of systems. I hope I don't offend anyone, but there's quite a few systems where they say, "Oh, just start with an hour. That's the bare minimum." Some, and I think there's something missing there because people try to sit for an hour and it hurts and nothing happens and their mind gets tired and their mind is very distracted, etc. And so there's very little benefit for them having done that hour, and most people quit because of having tried to do an hour for a period of time, right? I mean, I know people who have quit repeatedly. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no pain, no gain." And if you're trying to carve someone's character and you know they won't quit, sure, tell them to do an hour. But at the same time, if you actually want to train them in the skills, start them with 5 minutes and have them actually do it. And then start them with body scanning so that there's less pain in the body and it becomes more comfortable to sit. Who was it? Oh, I haven't seen him in a bit, but Cleric, one who was quite enthusiastic a few months ago, less enthusiastic now, but um, Cleric, for example, was very interested in meditation, and he had never done an hour. And one day we just did, I think it was 2 sessions of intensive breath and then 45 minutes of body scanning, and he sat for an hour and he didn't even notice it. So if you build up the right skills, it becomes easy. It's not a pain, or it's not much of a pain. So that's a much more skillful approach. Okay. Other questions? Sweet and sour, that's a good approach. Doing 3 or 4 5-minute intensive breath sessions a day, that's good. That'll produce results in a relatively short period of time because intensive breath is designed basically to work out those two muscles, of getting the mind pulled in. And then once the mind's pulled in, keeping it there and getting better and better at cooling it in one location. And if you do that 3, 4 times a day, the mind will start building those muscles up quite quickly. And if you don't always follow it up by body scanning, that's fine. The first couple of months, people doing my stuff, usually I tell them just focus on intensive breath. And once, I mean, there's no hard and fast rule, but once you can get 60 or 70% of your awareness to stay on the breath most of the time when you do intensive breath, then probably you have enough capability to start doing body scanning and have it really work. And how do you know that you've done that? Well, again, there's not any hardcore sort of here's exactly how you know, but often what people tell me is that it seems like their mind has gotten crazier and wilder and more difficult than ever before. And that quite often is a sign that you're actually struggling with your mind and trying to keep it on the breath, and you're noticing that the amount of bandwidth you want to put on the breath isn't staying there. And then it's hard work to try to keep all the little aspects of your mind pulled in and on the object, which means probably that you have actually pulled the mind in and placed it on the object. So that struggle, and noticing that struggle, is a good sign that you've actually made some progress with intensive breath. 5-10 minutes. Again, there's no hard and fast rule, Jay. You just got to work with yourself. Not that like every 2 hours do this, do that. You just have to work with yourself and see what what style of doing this and what amount of practice and so on is improving your mind from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. In the long run, so Jay, I think you're, in terms of my material, formally speaking, I think you're at the body scanning stage, if I'm not mistaken. Since I only started this a couple months ago and I tell people to do it for a month or two, but each thing for a month or two. But once you start doing Mahamudra style practices more, then you'll be able to take more and more of your activity onto the past. And I know you did some of this with standing and walking and retreat with me, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the main thing, right? The main thing throughout the day is that you're trying to maintain as much of that quality of the senses being open and the mind abiding in a state of concentration on the senses as you can, because this is a practice you can do 24/7. When you're not doing it on your external senses, you can do it on your mind and the contents of your mind, even while, well, I don't know if I want to say that, but certainly doing that will should in the long run give you more insight into even your sleeping mind. Quality. Okay, let's see. I have friends where 5-10 minutes they are spent thinking they have been going for hours. Yeah, that's quite common. It's quite common for people to do a small amount of practice, and it seems like a lot of time has passed when it's been a short time, because normally your mind is missing a lot of the moments that are happening. And this is why sometimes, I don't know. I try not to talk too much about the temporal aspect of meditation, because um, sometimes it seems like it takes forever for the practice to happen, because your awareness is now being aware of each moment or more of the moments that are going by, and therefore it seems like there's more time. And then sometimes it seems like, because your mind's so concentrated, that time goes by really quickly because there's not very much change for your mind to notice. Oh, it's a different moment now. And because there's less change, all of these moments seem to be like one packet of experience, so to speak. And therefore it seems like there's been less packets of change, less packets of, right? Because we're measuring how much time has passed, roughly speaking, based upon how much change has occurred, or noticing changes that are occurring. So if the mind is very stable, sometimes it seems like time has passed very quickly. However, under different conditions, it seems like time's passing very slowly, because you're aware of each moment, or a lot more moments at least, going by. Jay says, feeling too lucid. Yeah, you may be applying too much force to try to make the mind lucid. So, one of the problems that's possible to have is that it's called over application, where you don't have a particular problem, but you think you do. And so you're applying an antidote to a problem you don't have at the moment, which disturbs the mind. So try to balance the antidotes that you have. If the mind is starting to feel sort of too mm, too sort of reactive in a sense because there's so much lucidity, then sort of refine the state of the concentration and bring it back to a little more stability and vice versa. I mean, for some of you, this is going to sound nuts, but yeah, purple guy, it's very uncommon. To be able to pool all of your attention in one place is very, very difficult. And there's a bunch of technical things that will get in the way. For example, like I was talking about yesterday or the day before, if you're training in concentration, you'll notice if you're applying a lot of force, a lot of intent, that the body will start collapsing because it takes attention, certain amount of your attention to hold your body in the position you have it in, especially if you're not used to that position. And as you force all of your attention over here, the body sort of wilts, right? So you're telling your mind to come over here. The body was upright and in the right position. Then you tell your awareness to come over here, and the body sort of wilts, and your head starts to droop, and your back starts to bend, and all of that. So you have to find, again, it's not easy. You got to fine tune your concentration and your awareness in the body so that some of the awareness is here on the object, some of the awareness is staying in the body as much as is required to hold it in the position that it's in. And you're trying to get more and more over here without the body falling over. And eventually you can do it. Run through the whole curriculum. Uh, Jay, I would say humbly, even though we briefly touched on it in retreat, Probably, probably because it's extremely difficult to do. I'd be surprised if you've had even a single moment of like actual Mahamudra on all five external senses. You know, very difficult. They're very, very difficult, and to actually get the mind to abide on the mind, very difficult. So these sorts of practices, uh, you got to build them up. What I generally tell people is, if you're going to do my stuff and you really want to do it full on, it's a 4 to 5 year curriculum. You will gain more and more capability through the practices, but it's yeah, 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 no, I understand it. To even understand the practices though, beyond just the words and knowing the right words, is very, very difficult. So there's so many little details, and there's lots of little ways to go wrong. And like I said, I think probably to just communicate, for lack of a better term, the sort of basics of how to do it all. It takes a lot of time. Oh, looks like the stream has died again. Let's see. Oh no. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, okay. Dream practices. I don't do a lot of dream practices. I've tried to do a few of them, but it's not my main practice at the moment. This is something else I'm working on at the moment. Attention narrows onto pleasant sensation. Yeah, so Doctor Doom. It is also quite in some sense it's easier to get your mind to focus on something if it's uncomfortable. Even though sort of a more jumpiness because your mind wants to get away from that sensation. But it also grabs attention, right? It seems to grab attention much more easily. So what do you do? Well, you have to work with yourself until the pain is less painful. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you do is you gotta learn how to pool your attention in one place as best you can. So I do that through a practice called intensive breath meditation. And then to reduce bodily pain so that it's more comfortable to sit and your pains aren't pulling your awareness. Oh, and sorry, I think I was out for a moment there. And the pain isn't pulling your awareness. I teach body scanning meditation because it's been shown in cognitive research to do two things: to increase your pain tolerance and to reduce the amount of physical pain you actually feel in the body. So that is, I think, makes it a good bridge between just having the basic skill of being able to place your attention somewhere and the eventual skill of being able to sit for 30 minutes or an hour with some comfort. Does that make sense? Also, I come from a school of thought originally because my main teacher had a long Zen background of sitting very, very still right from the beginning. And one of my teachers later on convinced me that that probably isn't the best approach for beginners. The better thing to do is not that he advised me to use body scanning for this, but a better approach is in the beginning, again, you're just fine tuning your ability to have some of the awareness in the body and to get the body lined up where it should be and the awareness on the object of concentration. And as time goes on, the body gets more comfortable because you're getting better at putting it in a position where it's comfortable. While your awareness is beginning to pervade the body and you're aware of what the body is, where it is, how it works, because you're putting more and more of the mind in the body becomes more comfortable. In addition to having less pain and more pain tolerance, you get better at putting the body in a position where it's comfortable. So this then allows you to sit comfortably for longer periods of time. Also, it doesn't hurt to have something like 18 Lohan Palm, where you have a physical discipline of some kind that improves the body in a specific way that makes it more comfortable for sitting. You know, that could be very beneficial. It'd be very beneficial. And I've done a fair amount of Hindu yoga practices in a relatively serious lineage. I did Ashtanga yoga, which is considered to be, I think, one of the more hardcore types of practice. It's not as commercial, but and it's still relatively commercial. But honestly, I didn't find myself becoming more and more comfortable sitting through that practice, although I hoped to. And the only thing that's really helped over a number of years to make my body more comfortable. And I'm getting older too, so my body should be getting less comfortable, but it's actually getting more comfortable. I feel my body feels now at almost 41 feels about as comfortable as it did when I was 15 years old or 16 years old. So that's I spent years with a lot of pain in my body. So to have a body now that feels better than it did when I was a teenager is pretty remarkable. And now I can use that body to sit more comfortably and do practice for an hour or whatever with way less distraction in the body, you know? And I attribute this to practices like 18 Lohan Palm, where you just improve the quality of the body and make the joints comfortable, make the spine comfortable, and a few other things that are a bit more difficult to talk about. But the body starts to function better. Circulation gets better. The movement of the nerves gets better so that your legs don't fall asleep as much. But yeah, like I've had back pain and neck pain since I was 16. And sitting here today, I have very, very, very little discomfort in my back and my neck. which is remarkable to me because I lived with that pain for so long. I just assumed it would be there until I was dead, and then it started to go away from doing practices like this. Same thing, my left shoulder. Some of you probably noticed if you look at videos even from a couple months ago, you'll see that one of my shoulders kind of sits like this, or sometimes it sits like this, kind of rolled forward, because my shoulders just both of them are in different ways totally messed up from sports and martial arts and all sorts of stuff. And likewise, from doing internal martial arts and doing Lohan practice and different Neigong practices where you're learning how to release the muscles and open the joints and all this sort of things, these things have started to resolve. And my body, to my great delight and surprise, as promised by these systems, my body has gotten more and more comfortable. And I can sit more comfortably for longer periods of time to do my practices, which is the point of something like 18 Lohan, right? Of course, it's fun to do push hands and move people around and do all the nerdy internal martial arts things you see people doing on the web. That's all good fun too, but it produces these kinds of results, which are really beneficial for your practice. Using a computer. Yeah, it could be too. Different, from using a mouse and whatever, right shoulder. I don't know what's going on with my right shoulder. Like, you know what it is actually? One of my shoulders I dislocated on 3 different occasions doing different things. Not for a long time, but just briefly dislocated it. And then, yeah, David, I feel your pain. I don't know what's going on with my spine and neck and so forth, but one of the things that you do in internal Chinese arts is that you learn how to bring the head up like this and then let the spine pull down like this by releasing the muscles and the tissue. And slowly over time, you do other exercises to sort of work the different angles of pulling the spine open, twisting it, moving it on this direction, moving it this direction, etc., until all of the connective tissue rearranges itself and it gets straighter and straighter and more comfortable and more comfortable. So that that's what these arts are designed to do, is to keep things working well as you get older, in addition to making the body comfortable for meditation. And like I said, I did yoga, I did a lot of other things, rock climbing, mm, did a lot of martial arts like judo, jujitsu. Um, I've just never found anything that works as well as the internal Chinese arts and Taoist health arts for making the body feel really nice and comfortable and good for practice, which is why I've been pushing this Lohan Palm thing so much. Uh, you know, if you have issues and you want the body to work well for this stuff, I've never found anything as good or effective as those practices. That's why I recommend them so much. And people that are in the chat who are doing those practices, they can tell you. Yeah, yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, if you're doing repetitive motion where you're always twisting one way with something heavy, you know, the joints and the wrists, the shoulders from rotating the same way with heavy weight, etc., you can wear the body down. You can wear the body down. But this will be the last thing, then I'll jump into practice. Yeah, I mean, I need to talk to Neil because I'm not authorized to teach Lohan stuff, but uh actually, luck. When I teach standing meditation, I teach it using the posture, the first posture for training in internal stuff. So if you were going to train in qigong, or you were gonna get the low on palm empowerment. Sorry. So if you train in qigong, you train in tai chi, bagua, xingyi, yichuan, 18 lohan palm, all of them start with making basically learning how to make the spine really long and learning how to relax all the tissue you don't need to hold you up. So when I teach my standing practice, I do the first posture, which is called ultimate posture. The trouble is, Jay, I'm also the class clown. It's part of what part of what gets me in trouble. Wait, where are you guys going? So when I teach standing, since it came up, we'll do standing today. When I teach standing, I teach it in the way you would teach the Chinese health arts. So is it easy enough to see me here or no? Maybe put the camera down a bit so you can see me a little closer. I think that's as far as it'll go without recording the screen. So the first bit is the feet, right? So, oh, I still have some flour on me from baking earlier. So the feet. Here's your heel on your foot, right? Here's the ball of the foot. So you want, and then the arch here, obviously, normally your foot will be sort of like this when you're standing on it. Or unless you're flat footed, then it'll be like this. All the bones will be in an open position. In any case, you want the weight when you're standing to be about here. And if that becomes too uncomfortable, because it will get uncomfortable, then you can put it here at the front of the heel. So either the back of the ball or the front of the heel, but not on the arch. Okay? And the reason for this is especially the front here. For all of you that are standing already, just take your weight, and if you lean back slightly and you kind of lock your knees, don't fall over, okay? And you just sort of lock your knees, you'll feel that your weight is resting on your bones when it's resting on the heels, right? The muscles in the legs and stuff can mostly relax. And then if you lean forward a bit and bend the knees a touch and come onto your toes slightly, right? You'll feel that the leg muscles and everything have to contract and tighten up to hold you in that position. And then the weight ends up on the muscles and the tendons and so forth, right? Tendons, ligaments, whatever. I'm not a biologist. But in brief, if you're on the heel, you are mostly oriented towards sitting on the bones, the bone structure of the body. And if you're on the toes, you're mostly oriented towards using the muscles of the body to hold you up. However, if you rest here, you'll feel, so you can try that now, if you put most of the weight by bending the knees, let me see if I can sort of show you. So here's me straight legged, right? Oh, did you lose me again? No, I think you did. I think we're fine. Oh, no, you did lose me. Okay, I should be back now. So you should see when I bend my knees, you'll see how, if you look at the door behind me, if you look at the wall behind me, see how when I bend my knees, I end up moving forward? So if I bend my knees so therefore my weight comes forward, you'll see that now my weight is resting over that point behind the balls of the feet. Oh, okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. So, in brief, once again, if the weight is on the heel, you're mostly on the bones. If the weight and the knees are locked out, then you're standing mostly on the bone structure of the body. If you're fully on the toes, then you're mostly standing on the muscular structure of the body. But if you bend the knees ever so slightly, right? So here I am. I'll do it like this just so you can sort of see what my knees are doing. So here's me with my locked knees, weight on my heels. If I bend my knees a little bit so that I'm on the balls of the feet, just behind the ball of the foot rather, not on the toes, not on the actual ball, but just behind it. Try that and you'll feel that the foot ends up kind of going like this and stretching a little bit, and it feels stretchy. And you'll feel that by way of analogy, this part of my arm, right? Your calf here will feel a little bit stretchy. Then take your hips, and instead of having them like this, sticking out, just take your tailbone and point it downward, as if there was a big weight pulling down from your perineum, pulling straight down between your feet. And then take your head, and as if someone had grabbed your hair and was just pulling it upward like this, right? So that your spine is getting pulled like this between the weight on your perineum and somebody grabbing the hair on the back third of your skull and pulling it upwards, right? And you'll feel that the spine slightly stretches like this vertically. Also, when you do that, you should feel a slight stretch here in the front of the thigh. And so now there's a stretchy feeling that goes from the foot to the calf to the thigh to the hips to the spine. All that's left is to connect that stretchy feeling to the arms. Easiest way to do that is just slightly open your hands. You don't want to stretch them open like a crazy person. Just, this is noodle, right? Just enough. Like if you hold your hands up, open them just enough so that they're open, just barely open, right? And then let the arm hang. So, like this, you should feel, if you let the arms sort of relax and the hands are just barely stretched open, you should start to feel that there's this stretchiness and bounciness now that runs through the whole body. So if you bounce, you should feel that that stretchiness you've now put through the whole body sort of connects as one unit. Can anybody feel that? So the sort of entryway, let's say, the entryway to all of these health benefits, there's a ton of other stuff you build on and blah, 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 blah. But this very basic entryway in terms of getting the posture correct with this slight stretchy feeling running through everything, that's the beginning of making the body more, making the body, how to say, better for seated practice and all this. Because when you're seated, also, right, you want the spine to be slightly stretched open, but not military style, just ever so gently lengthened. And you want the arms not tightly held here in some kind of weird meditative posture. You want the arm just hanging there with the hand slightly stretched open as you're holding it in whatever position is related to your meditation, right? So this slight stretchiness through the system is what you end up sitting on, so to speak, when you do your practice, so that you're not going like this. Okay, so we'll just do again sort of a short practice today, since we're talking about theoretical issues, all very important, but they take time. So take your feet and put them today. Let's do hip distance. So put them right below your hips. Your feet should be facing forward. You don't want them out like this. You want them facing the front. And then you're going to just bend the knees ever so slightly. Imagine a big heavy weight on your perineum, pulling the hips sort of downwards in between the feet like this. Don't let your knees come in this way. Keep the knees out, but don't do a weird horse stance. Just let the weight, let the weight pulling down between the legs end up getting the knees into the right position. Yeah, it's okay. It's day one. It's okay if you don't hit it perfectly. It doesn't have to be perfect. So next, with the spine, a lot of people when they bring the hips underneath the body, watch my head, right? A lot of people when they bring the hips under the body go like this. So it will feel actually once you've put the hips underneath, it'll feel like this is straight to exaggerate it. So lean forward slightly, that will be straight. Okay? So next the arms. So just shake the arms out a little bit so that there's no tension in there. And a chiropractor gave me this little exercise that's really helpful. So with the arms, once they're sort of shaken out a little bit, just make two thumbs up and then turn it downward. Now keeping the elbows where they are, just take those thumbs now turned downwards and turn them behind you. And you'll feel, especially if you shake your shoulders a little bit, you'll feel how that starts to take the shoulders from being up here and dropping them down to where they should be. So really turn that thumb down and then try to relax the shoulders away from the ears. One of my teachers said, try to put your shoulder blades into your back pockets, and not by doing this and pulling your arms down, but just if your arms are here, just relax the extra tension out and try to let your shoulder blades fall down the back as if they're going to end up in your back pockets without pulling them down. Okay? So now, again, wherever you got is fine. It doesn't have to be perfect today. Now, from here, just relax the arms. And hopefully, again, you'll start to feel like that stretchy feeling starting to connect to the arm. Take the hand from the noodle position and just barely open the hand. And now you can touch your thigh with it, which is helpful because as you stand here doing body scanning, you'll end up going like this to exaggerate. If you have the hands and fingers on the thighs and you know that they're basically sort of even, then you won't end up uneven. So don't put them on the side like a military person. Don't put them on the front. Put them at about 45. Okay. So here we are now in a pretty good posture for standing. Once you get comfortable in this posture, not only will it make you more comfortable, healthier, etc., just this one posture can do a lot for you. If you bend the knees a little bit, it becomes actually quite a challenging posture, surprisingly. Uh, but it'll make you better at sitting. It makes the body much more comfortable for sitting if you get used to having correct posture while standing. Right. So now inside the posture, without changing the posture itself, we're going to do our body scanning meditation. So from here, just start with placing the mind in the toes on both feet. You can close your eyes and then place your awareness into the balls of the feet, arches, the heels, ankles, calves, knees, lower thighs, upper thighs, the front and back of the pelvis, find your tailbone, anus, perineum, your sexual organ, your waist, the diaphragm region. So you're just below your solar plexus, about 3-4 inches all the way around the torso. Your chest, shoulders, bicep area, forearms, wrists, palms, and the back of your hands, fingers, and the lower third of your neck, the middle third of your neck, upper third of your neck, the joint between the neck and the skull, and for the sake of time today, just do the whole skull except for the top of the head. And the top of the head. Okay. And you may be feeling some sensations in your legs. Uh, it's quite common with this practice because of what it's doing to your body to feel sort of heat or sensations of heat or electricity in your feet and your legs. There's no need to shake that out of the legs or to worry about it. It generally goes away. You'll know if you're doing something wrong if you do this practice and then you have more than sort of ordinary muscular pain the next day. If you have some sort of gradually increasing injury, you know that you need to adjust the practice because it's a very gentle practice. It's hard to injure yourself in a quick way, but you'll notice if you're doing something wrong over a period of time that you need to adjust your feet or your hips or something so that the weight is even and that you're not sort of bending one of the knees the wrong way or something. But yes, you will definitely feel because of the way this practice works, you'll feel heat in your feet, tingling in your feet. Probably Probably if you do this for more than 5 minutes, you'll feel very, very, very intense, painful sensations of heat and electricity in the feet and legs. That's all normal. and it goes away usually within about 10 minutes of finishing the practice. Uh, right. Questions? So since Luck was asking about basic Lohan stuff, that posture of the spine that we were working on and the ability to have that slightly stretchy feeling through the body is the bedrock or one of the bedrocks of making any Chinese internal health system work as far as I understand them. You need to be able to sort of get that slightly stretched, slightly more open feeling in the body. And some of you might notice actually, even now, I hope some of you do, let me know if you do. You might notice that your hands are warmer than normal, and you might notice that your feet feel like they're warmer and have good blood flow, and you know, just by stretching the body open slightly, blood can get places it normally can't get as well quite often. So it's a quite good practice for improving general health. It's deceptively simple. Raccoon, yes. Oats. If you would track down for me the Foundation 2 video from the video course on YouTube and just pop it into the chat. So, uh, in my there's some notes underneath that video, and I talk about it through the video. But yeah, you'll notice maybe your body temperature increase. That's yeah, it's normal. But you'll feel honestly, it's surprising. But just to give you guys an example, I don't run and I don't do other things. I mainly just do internal arts. And my wife's sister came into town a while ago and wanted to hike up this little mountain that's near Edinburgh. Maybe less of a mountain, more of a hill. It's kind of a 15, or sorry, maybe like a 30-minute walk. But we decided just because we didn't have much time that we would run up the whole thing. And even though I don't do any running or any running training and really don't do any aerobic exercise because I'm doing internal arts all the time, I was really surprised to find that my aerobic health was actually quite good. My ability to run and to not be super, more winded than than one might expect, right? When running up a steep hill, uh, everything seemed to be working quite well, actually. So these exercises, as simple as they are, they end up working out your body a lot, and you end up getting cardiovascular and um, aerobic exercise, even though you don't notice while you're doing it that that's what's happening. At least from my experience, this has been one of the benefits. Yeah. So Raccoon, in the document and the video, I have the full instructions there, and then of course you can always come back to this and watch it again. And also I go over this from time to time. Yes. So then, in terms of the Lohan stuff, which Oates you could put in the chat as well, since we've got a couple new people in the room. In terms of the Lohan stuff overall, Lohan is then adding on more things, right? So I'll give you one example. So one of the foundational exercises for Lohan is learning how to. Oftentimes, when you're doing internal arts stuff, you're learning how to. How do I say? Take the body and sort of be able to separate it into smaller and smaller pieces that can all move, and then you learn how to move them together, right? So one of the basic Lohan exercises is if I sort of isolate the chest, right? You're learning how to move, see, watch my hips, right? You're learning how to move the chest without moving the hips. And then if I keep my head where it is, then think about what must be happening to my spine when I can move my chest without moving my hips or my head, right? The spine is basically going like this relative to my chest. And so this is one of the opening exercises, which seems quite simple. But if you keep your hips in place and your head in place, you're giving yourself a chiropractic treatment, right? A very gentle, slow chiropractic treatment where you're going like this over and over and over again with the spine. See what I mean? So first, I take the spine from its normal screwed up position and I get it into that slightly more open, stretchy position. And then I start doing things with it in that position. See what I mean? Likewise, some of the early moves in the actual form, see how I'm keeping that stretchy feeling here, but I'm learning how to get the body in a position basically where I can keep that stretchiness and that openness of the spine even when I move from side to side, which is also training the hips to be comfortable in a wider and wider range of motion where the spine is straight. And if I can hold the spine straight and comfortable here while standing, right? See? Then when I go to sit and I want to just sit and sit still and have everything be comfortable. Hips, please be comfortable. You know, knees, please. My knees, will you just please behave yourselves for 30 minutes so I can do some practice? So, like this, when you do things like Lohan Palm, or really like if it's a full system of Tai Chi is a bit like popular Tai Chi is a bit like popular yoga. They've stripped out a lot of the layers that make it work. Uh, but Lohan has all the layers in it. So, yeah, these sorts of exercises start to train the body to be more and more and more comfortable when ultimately when you're in a seated position, right? But lots of other layers there. Lots of other layers. Okay, my friends. Well, since that seems to be it in terms of the chat for the day, I suppose we will leave it there, eh? Thank you all for coming. If there's more questions, just put them in the comments below the video, and usually I get to those within a day or two if I didn't get to cover anything here. Hope to see you all again soon. Try not to die before I do, okay? Cheers. Rice bubbles. Yeah, my body was like that too. It's less like that now, thankfully. But okay. See you all later. Oh, actually, sorry. David, Shane, and Raccoon. Let me put this in the and Luck too. Let me put this in the chat for you. If you guys use this code, if you decide you do want to sign up for Lohan and give it a try, use that code or this code. That first code, first 50, will give you the first 3 months half off. So you can just kind of give it a try. It's very, very reasonable for with that. And then if you decide you want to jump in straight out of the gate and do just kind of like do it full on, first 50 the yearly subscription, you pay it up front, but you get a free month. And then because you're getting 3 months half off, it ends up being 2.5 months your first year that you get for free, which is a pretty crazy deal. But we wanted people to have a good, since it's new, since we're working on it and whatever, we wanted to make sure that people had a really good experience with the Lohan course when they jumped in. So yeah, feel free to use those codes if you do want to jump in and give it a try. All right. Good to see you all. I'll see you again tomorrow, should I live so long.